Well, hello everybody and welcome to Jeff's Baking Blog. Today I'm going to be making some bread. Now I had heard my sister in Canada was given some Zopf bread, which is a Swiss bread which is platted, and it's an enriched bread in that it has milk and butter in it. And I thought about making that, and I will do it at some stage, but today I decided to make what we call a milk loaf. And I checked various recipes and I found one that I quite liked, but it was for a huge loaf and far too big for my £2 loaf tin. The recipe said put the dough in 2 balls in a large loaf tin. Wasn't any more specific than that, but I know that the amount of flour and liquid would have made far too big a loaf for my tin. So I decided that I would try to cut that recipe down. I got that recipe from The Guardian. It was a Dan Leopard recipe, so I've adjusted it, I hope, to meet the requirements. So what I have is 500 grams of strong white flour, 12 grams of fast action yeast, 10 grams of salt, 20 grams of caster sugar, 60 grams of softened butter, 300 millilitres of milk which I've warmed up, and 80 millilitres of cold water. So I'm going to put the cold water into the milk, and I'm going to put a little bit of the sugar into the milk as well, and then I'm going to sprinkle the yeast in, and I'm going to leave that for 5 minutes for the yeast to start activating. So that should start to activate. And while that's doing that, I'm just going to take the flour and the salt and the remaining sugar, and I'm going to put them into a large bowl and just mix them round. To get them combined, and then I'll be back with you in a few minutes when the yeast is activated and we'll go on to the next step. Okay, so our yeast has risen, well, activated should I say, as you can see, and I'm going to pour that into the flour, sugar and salt mixture. And I'm just going to mix that together for the time being. You could do this with your hands, but at this stage I don't want to. And with that mix like that, I'm actually going to leave it for 15 minutes, and then I'm going to add the butter. So what I'm going to do is just cover that up with some cling film, plastic wrap, and leave it for 15 minutes. Then I'll be back with you. Okay, so I've let that dough rest for 15 minutes, and now I'm going to put the butter in, and I've actually just stirred the butter around a little bit to make sure that it's all nice and soft. And I'm just going to turn it around a little bit. And then I'm going to knead it just a bit. And this is quite a sticky dough. And I've only kneaded that for about a minute, and I'm actually going to just put a little bit of oil on the counter and tip the dough out onto it. Then I'm going to put some oil into my bowl. I'm not going to clean the bowl, it doesn't need it. Just give that a little knead further. And then I'm going to put that in the bowl and cover it again, and I'm going to let it rest for about an hour so that it proves, and then when I come back we'll go on to the next step, which is to shape it and put it in the baking in the loaf tin ready for baking. Okay, so I'm back with you, and I've let this rest for an hour, and twice during that hour I've taken the plastic wrap off and I've given it a very brief sort of 20-second knead, formed the ball again and put it back to rest. And so now I'm going to put it into the loaf tin. Now there are different ways you can do this. You can cut it into two and make two balls and put the two balls in the loaf tin. That will give it one shape. Or you can just sort of knock it back like that and form it into a sort of sausage shape and put that into the tin. Just knock it back gently and then form it into a sausage and put it into the tin. But I think I'll actually cut mine into two, roughly into two, like that, and then make two balls. and put them in the tin, just like that. And then I'm going to loosely cover that and let them increase in size by about a half. And when they've increased in size by a half, I'll put them into the oven, and I will have my oven preheated at at 180 Celsius. That's 160 Celsius with a fan, 350 Fahrenheit, and I will be ready to bake it. But I'll come back and show you that because I want to cut the top and just finish it off before they go into the oven. So I'll be back with you when this has increased in size by about a half. Okay, so I'm back with you, and I've allowed my dough to rise, as you can see. And what I'm going to do now, I've preheated my oven at 180 Celsius, 160 Celsius with a fan, 350 Fahrenheit. And I'm just going to take a knife, a sharp knife, and I'm going to cut a slit, if I can. Maybe that knife won't do it, I'll try this one. In the bread, or in the dough should I say, and then I'm going to take some flour and just sprinkle it over the top like that. And I'm going to put that in the oven, and I'm going to bake it for 45 to 50 minutes until it's got a nice brown colour on top. And it should sound hollow underneath. Then I'll take it out of the oven, check it for being hollow, and then out of the tin I'll allow it to cool down on a rack, and I'll be back to show you the result. Okay, so I'm back with you now, and our loaf has baked in the oven for 50 minutes, and I've taken it out, put it straight onto the wire rack. I tested it to make sure that it sounded hollow, and I've allowed it to cool down. So now I'm going to cut it. And there we have a wonderful, light, fluffy loaf. And I'm just going to break a piece off. It smelt wonderful as it was baking, bread always does, and it tastes so soft and fluffy and light. Ideal just with bread and jam or marmalade or something in the morning, but also very good for sandwiches. So this is a really easy loaf to make because it doesn't take very much in the way of kneading. So I recommend you give this one a go. Now if you've enjoyed this video, please give me the thumbs up below the video and click to subscribe to my YouTube channel. In the top right hand corner of the screen here there will be an eye that you can click on to take you to the recipe, and I'll put a link below the video that will take you to the recipe as well. And that's it for today. I'll be back with you in a few days with another recipe, so until then, happy baking.